Welcome to Brave Healer Productions. It's time to experience what's possible. So, what if there's something you haven't learned yet that could change everything? Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we're helping the world experience what's possible. And here today to help me with that mission is the author of one of our newest books. This one is called Suited for Leadership: How to Show Up with Purpose to Have Lasting Impact. Welcome, Dennis Pullin. How are you doing today?
Laura, I am great, and thank you so much for having me.
I can't wait to get into this conversation. Dennis, I'm honored to be here with you today and very excited about your book. Thank you for not only writing an excellent book about leadership, but also walking your walk of awareness and being an exceptional model of what it means to serve as a leader. When I get to play in the sandbox with people like you, my life feels good and full and amazing. And that's because of the way you showed up for this whole project. So, first of all, just huge thank you for who you are and who you are in the world.
No, thank you. And it's tough to hear the word exceptional model, but that really is what drove me to writing the book, is that I too had some exceptional models to learn from. And so the book was simply a collection of lessons that I've learned, lessons that I've taught, and honestly, lessons that I live by.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And y'all are going to read exactly what he's talking about. Let me just first tell you a little bit about Dennis, okay? Dennis Pullin is a recognized thought leader and seasoned healthcare executive. In his current role as president and CEO of Virtua Health, an academic health system in New Jersey, he champions humanity and health equity, believing that every person has the right to live a healthy life. From food security to affordable housing to gun safety to education, Dennis advocates for causes that help create thriving communities of wellness. So, you started already answering my first question for you, but what I would love for you to share is, what's the why behind this book for you? Why did you decide to do this on this topic?
No, as I mentioned briefly, I was fortunate enough to have some just extraordinary examples of what a true leader should be like. And as I grew in my career, I made mental notes of many of the lessons that they were teaching and perhaps didn't know they were teaching me. But I made notes about how I would want to be as a leader, such that when I got in a position to lead, I could make sure I showed up in a way that I wanted my leader to show up. And so over time, I had a number of people say, "Hey, I've benefited from hearing you speak, or some of the lessons that you've taught. Maybe you should think about putting it all together and having something tangible that you can leave behind." And so it was an overwhelming thought to try and do this, but the more that I sort of worked through the process, the more I realized that there was an opportunity for me to share some things with leaders that wanted to leave an impact. And that is really what it's about for me. How do I show up, and how do I do things that are purposeful but yet meaningful?
I love that you mentioned your mentors because I truly believe every great mentor has great mentors. Like, this is how this happens, right? When you started to talk about that today, does one person or one lesson come to your mind more than another?
You know, I won't say one. I had a number of individuals that provided me with great examples of how to lead. One of the gentlemen that I worked for, Ken Samet, who's the CEO of MedStar Health in the DC region, and another individual, Jack Lynch, the CEO of Mainline Health, both provided me with great examples. But there were other people throughout my career that gave me certain nuggets. And one of them was, find a way to make yourself uniquely different, such that people will want to follow you. People will feel compelled to be a part of your journey. And that one thing for me was authenticity. How do I show up as the best version of myself in a way that people can see, can believe, and will be drawn to this journey that I'm trying to take them on?
That is, I think, one of the most powerful first steps to being a leader and being authentic. When, this gets talked about a lot, it's kind of like a hot topic. Maybe, okay, aside from authenticity, what do you think? Think of our listeners today, our viewers, and they are maybe up and coming leaders and they want to be better. They have a learner's mindset, all of those good things, right? And that thing about authenticity is so important. What else? What's the most important thing you want people to know about stepping up into a leadership role?
That's a great question because it takes us back to the title of the book, Suited for Leadership. And being suited, it's a play on being prepared. It's about showing up ready to do the things that you are charged to do. And the preparation is the key. You just can't step out and think that you can fake your way through it. And that's why authenticity is so important. People can see through when it's not truly authentic, when they don't think you are well prepared, if they don't think you are suited to represent them in a manner that says, this is my leader. And so I truly believe preparation without question is a key to success, commitment, authenticity, and being able to clearly articulate your why. Why is this important? Why are you compelled to represent and present yourself in a manner that others can tie into?
I think it takes a little practice to communicate that why. You're making me think of the beginning of my journey too. And that question gets asked a lot. And I feel like in the beginning, I wasn't so good at answering it. But the more I was forced to answer it, the better I got at getting super clear inside of me, my own values, what I felt was authentic for me. And then it gets easier and easier, right? So practice, would you agree?
I do. Practice is a big part of that. And one of the things I talk about in the book is one of the traits I think is just vital for a leader is the ability to communicate. And I try and break that communication down into the three buckets, the message, the messaging, and the messenger. Well, the messenger, that's where you start with the messenger. Are you credible? Have you demonstrated that you've done the things necessary to support your role as a leader? Are you trained? Do you have the experience? And then the message. Have you formulated a narrative that is easy to follow, that is clear in its direction? And then the messaging, do you articulate it in a way that is digestible? And so, as a leader, and to your point, it comes with praxis. Being a credible messenger, that is about experience. Having the appropriate message, crafting your narrative where it makes sense and is defensible. And then the messaging, can you articulate it in a way that people can embrace it, they can digest it, they can understand it? That is, I think, just crucial for a leader in their ability to communicate.
So I've heard the question about whether leaders are born or made. What do you think about that?
I don't think we just arrive at being a great leader. A lot of work goes into it. Some people are naturally comfortable being front and center. Others have to sort of work their way into that. But the substance that is necessary, I think, to be a quality leader, that comes from learning your craft. It comes from wisdom that you gain through your experiences. And it does come from praxis and being able to get people to follow you places that they might not otherwise go. And that just doesn't happen overnight.
Whether you're comfortable or not, right? I know.
Exactly.
It's always an interesting question when I see it. And I thought about it with you and your book. I'm like, well, okay, maybe certain traits you're born with. What is that? Maybe a little extra courage or something. But I think the rest is practice and training and also your purpose.
Yeah.
When you began to feel that purpose brewing up in you, do you remember when that was and what was happening in your life?
Yeah. Yeah, I was very young. I grew up in a household with two parents that were hardworking individuals, didn't have much formal education. I had a mom that was a very spiritual woman, and she believed in the power of prayer. And so one of her goals was she prayed for me a lot. And it's interesting because it's not like I was a bad kid and she needed some divine intervention to really help me get to where I wanted to be. She did it as a way of inspiring me. And it took me a long time to figure that out because one of her prayers was, Lord, let him be better than today. And she would pray so I would hear her. And and I thought, wow, why is she doing this? I'm an okay kid. I'm doing okay. But that was her way of inspiring me to do good, inspiring me to push myself. And so it was a long answer to a very short question. Did I know that there was at some particular point where I was suddenly motivated or found no. She instilled inside of me a desire to always do good. And so one's purpose can change on any given day based on who they interact with, based on what the task at hand. I know I have a purpose. I get to wake up every day and try and figure that out. I know it is to be a force of good in this universe that we get to share, but I'm not stuck on a single purpose.
I love that answer. Okay, I can't help myself. I got to go back to this communication topic again because you got me going and my wheels are spinning about these topics. It's so great. These are such great topics. But you touched on communication a little bit. You told us the three things. What you made me think about was communication as a means to building better relationships. And I know this is important to you. What do you think in terms of that aspect? What kind of tip would you give an upcoming leader who's really trying to build that community and those better relationships? What's the most important thing they should know?
There's a trust factor, and we talked a little bit about authenticity. We talked about clarity. You talked about, for me, authenticity is when you can reconcile your words with your actions. And that, I think, builds trust. And I think as a leader, and particularly for me, I'm in healthcare. And when our community loses faith or their trust for us, then we've lost the battle. And so we have to present ourselves as a source of truth for the communities that we serve. And as a leader, even though I'm the CEO, I also tell myself I have to wear the title of Chief Communication Officer because people look to me to help deliver a message, to be consistent in that message, and also to model that message. And so as a leader, I can't stress how important communication is. And I can't stress how important authenticity with that communication is and how clarity is important to that communication process. And I don't even know if I answered your question correctly or to your satisfaction, but
It
that's how
was
I think
great.
about it.
It was great. And you had me at trust, but
Mhm.
you also had me when you wrapped back around to this is really important, you guys. Like this is that communication thing is important. It's why I came back to that topic here just in this discussion. It's been a game changer for me in my business and my life in all aspects. We are in relationship with ourselves, nature, each other, right? And in all of the different ways, it's so important. So you answered that beautifully.
All right.
So you guys, I want to just share for a minute this beautiful book cover with you and let you have a little sneak peek. Dennis, you have a lot going on aside from this beautiful book. Will you tell us a little bit about what you're up to in the world and what else is going on?
You know, Laura, I have the privilege, and I do truly consider it a privilege to get up every morning and go to a job that I absolutely love. And why is that? I work in healthcare. And so every day I get to play a part in doing something that would ultimately improve the health and well-being of a community. And so for me, that's one of the most exciting and rewarding things I could do. And so as the president and CEO of Virtua Health, we have an opportunity to save lives, to create, I think you mentioned it in the introduction, communities of wellness. And how do we do that? We address sickness, obviously, but we also play a part in addressing what we call some of the social determinants of health, those things that have an impact on the health of an individual that you might not be aware of. Education, you know, affordable housing, transportation, all of those things impact a person's health. It's interesting that your zip code oftentimes have a greater impact on your health status than your genetics. And so for me, as a leader of a health system, I get to play a part in having a positive impact on the communities that we serve. And that is through making sure that there is the appropriate types of health services. We do things impacting housing. We do things to impact transportation, education, all of those things. So when you ask me, what are we working on? We are trying to improve the health and well-being of this vast community that we serve. And I get to play an important part of it. And as a leader, people ask me all the time, and if you haven't, I'm sure you probably would, or you're thinking about it, what is the most exciting and rewarding part of being a CEO in my job? And then the follow-up is, what's the most challenging part? And for me, the answer is the same to both questions. It's that power of the pen that you and I have talked about. My ability as a CEO to, if I pay attention to something or if I deem it to be important, in the small universe that I have an impact on, most likely something will be done about it. People will pay attention to it because I pay attention to it. Therefore, something may be done about it. So the power of that pen is tremendous. But there's a weight that comes with that because we don't have unlimited resources. We can't do everything. So I have to make sure that I am very purposeful in the things that I do support. And that keeps me up sometimes, making sure that, I wasn't so bullish on one thing that I, didn't pay enough attention to something else. And so as a CEO, it's a balancing act. And so every day I get to have those types of conversations and make decisions to do the things that are without question best for the community that we get to serve.
I love listening to you talk about this. So I'm going to rewind to your zip code has a greater impact sometimes than on your health status than your genetics. Wow. Think about that one for a minute, you guys. And somebody like Dennis making sure that all of those other things that impact health are addressed. It's that holistic approach. It's integrating all the pieces. This is where I call it authentic healing comes into play, authentic health, right? When you're looking at all the pieces. So I love that so much. All right. One thing I know about leadership and taking responsibility for that role is that it can be overwhelming sometimes. And you just talked about it a little bit, right? The pros and the cons, the challenges are there. What are some last words of advice today that you want to leave our listeners with in terms of those tough days they're having?
And we all have them. It's and it does come with the territory. I think as a leader, you have to accept and even embrace the fact that there will be days that will push you to your very limit, especially if you're in a role that is by design putting you in a position to support people and people look at us for their financial stability and success and some for their emotional stability as well. It's difficult to do those things if you don't take care of self. And so you have to approach it that all of us need a space and an opportunity to decompress. All of us need, in my opinion, or a community that we can tap into. And for me, it's other leaders, leaders like myself that are experiencing some of the same things that I experience on a day-to-day basis. There is a bucket that I have of friends I get to play golf with on the weekends and where we can decompress and solve all the problems of the world while playing horrible golf. And then there's family where you have a safe space and you can sort of, and my point is you cannot minimize the importance of recharging your own battery as a leader such that you can show up every single day fully present and giving up yourself because there are so many people that depend on you to help fill their own cups. And you have to be willing to do that. And it's tough. There's not always this perfect balance that you hear people talk about, work-life balance. The scales tip sometimes day to day. And you just have to find what works for you and know the signs of when you need to tap into it.
So, you all are going to really enjoy some of the wonderful stories, a couple of stories about that golf course that you like to play on and the wonderful circle that you have around you of friends, of family. I appreciate you being willing to let us have a little window into that reality for you and giving us that authentic. Sometimes it feels a little vulnerable to put that in a book, right? But it's greatly appreciated because getting back to the thing that you talked about with trust, that's where we get to trust you at another level. And wrapping up today, Dennis, thank you so much for what you do in the world. And thank you for being here today to share it with everyone. Congrats on the book.
Well, thank you for having me and allowing me to share something that was so deeply personal to me. And this has been a fascinating journey. And I have to tell you, you mentioned briefly being vulnerable. That was the one thing about writing this book that I didn't anticipate, but I knew that I wanted to be authentic in my story and my writing, and that required me to sort of be a little more vulnerable than I had anticipated. But I think the end product is something that people will be able to extract from. It is not a how-to. It is, I would say, a teaching memoir of those things that I have learned. And as I mentioned, those things that I live by, and more importantly, the things that I try and share for seasoned leaders, up and coming leaders, or just individuals that want to know that there are alternative ways of approaching things to leave an impact.
And it is such a gift in all of those ways. Let's not forget to talk about the foundation because proceeds are going to support your beautiful foundation. Let's finish up with that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back up. And as I mentioned, we do try and address what we term as some of the social determinants of health. And one of the things that Virtua has committed to is food insecurities. You know, we serve communities that don't have a grocery store. And so for us, it's we like to take care of people when they show up at our doorstep, but we also know that oftentimes we have to reach out to those that can't get to us, particularly when it's around things such as having fresh, affordable, healthy foods. And so we have a program with a mobile grocery store, we have a mobile farmers market. And so 100% of the proceeds from this book will be donated to the Virtual Health Foundation, focus on our Eat Well program to addressing food insecurities in many of the communities that we serve.
Thank you, Dennis, for everything. You guys, you can hear it. This is way more than a book. This is a generous community. And so I know you might have heard something that got you the goosebumps today. Maybe you're resonating on the topics. Drop down below into the show notes because Dennis is hooked up with his links, the websites. You're going to be able to purchase this beautiful book. We hope that you do that today. The link is down below so that you can grab your copy. And we hope you do. We hope you reach out with questions. We hope that you read the book and understand that you're not alone, that you've got help on this leadership journey. Dennis is going to be an incredible partner in all that he has gifted inside of this book for you. Lastly, today, everyone, remember your words and your business will change the world when you're brave enough to share them in a bigger way. It's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.